My daughter-in-law called me a beggar at her charity gala. She didn't know I was the anonymous $1 million donor. My name is Millicent Grace. I am 83 years old. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Tell me your country and city in the comments below. And also tell me what food you love the most. I am telling you this story today because I need someone to hear it. I need someone to understand what happens when a woman spends her whole life giving quietly, loving deeply, asking for nothing in return, and then one night in front of hundreds of people, she gets called a beggar. That word comes out of the mouth of my own daughter-in-law, Serena Blake, at her very own charity gala. I live in a small but very lovely house in Charleston, South Carolina. It is a cream-colored house with a wide porch and 2 big oak trees in the front yard that have been there longer than I have been alive. I have flower boxes on my windows and a wind chime by the front door that my late husband Gerald put up 31 years ago. And I have never once taken it down because every time the wind moves through it I hear him saying good morning to me. That wind chime stays up until the day they carry me out of this house. This is my home. This is where I raised my children. This is where I still make my coffee at 6 in the morning and watch the birds and think about my life. I worked for 41 years as a certified public accountant. I know that does not sound glamorous, but let me tell you something about being an accountant for 41 years. You see everything. You see how families build wealth and lose it. You see how businesses rise and collapse. And along the way, if you are smart and disciplined and patient, you build something for yourself very quietly. That is what I do. I built something. I retire at 72 years old with a pension, a portfolio of investments I manage myself, and a reputation in this city as one of the most trustworthy financial minds anyone has encountered. I do not brag about this. That is not who I am. I have 2 children. My daughter Patricia lives in Denver and calls me every Sunday without fail. And then there is my son Harrison Cole. Harrison is my youngest. He is 54 years old now and he is a good man at his core, I truly believe that, but he is a man who is very much under the influence of his wife. And his wife is Serena Blake. Serena is 49 years old and she is what I would describe as aggressively impressive. She is tall and polished and she runs a non-profit called Illuminate Forward, which raises money for underprivileged children's education programs across 3 states. The work itself is genuinely important and good. I believe in the work. What I have trouble believing in is Serena herself because Serena is the kind of person who does good things in ways that make sure everyone is watching. Harrison and Serena have been married for 22 years. In the beginning things are civil and respectful between Serena and me. Not warm, never truly warm, but fine. But over the years something shifts. I notice that Serena begins to see me as an inconvenience. I notice that when I visit she finds reasons to be busy. I notice that at family dinner she speaks to me the way someone speaks to a very old dog that they are not sure still understands language. Slowly, with exaggerated patience, and with a tone that says I am only doing this because I have to. My granddaughter Nora Faith is 26 years old. And she is the greatest joy of my life next to her father when he is being himself and not Serena's husband. Nora calls me Grandma Millie and she means it every single time she says it. She visits me here in Charleston when she can. She calls me on random Tuesdays just to hear my voice. She is studying environmental science, and she has her grandfather's eyes and my stubbornness. And she is going to change the world someday. I know it the way I know my own name. Nora is the one who tells me about the gala. She calls me on a Wednesday afternoon, and I can hear in her voice that she is nervous about something. She says, Grandma Millie, Mom is hosting this big fundraising gala next month for Illuminate Forward. It is going to be at the Harrington Grand Hotel downtown. Black tie, formal dinner, the whole thing. She says, Dad wanted me to tell you that you are invited. I notice right away that she says Dad wanted me to tell you. Not Mom. Dad. And I file that away in my mind the way I file everything. Quietly. Carefully. I tell Nora I will think about it. After I hang up the phone I sit on my porch listening to Gerald's wind chime. And I think about Illuminate Forward. I think about how I believe deeply in what they are doing for these children. These kids who just need a chance, who just need someone to say we see you and we are investing in your future. I have been donating to Illuminate Forward anonymously for 4 years. Small amounts at first. Then larger. I keep it anonymous because I do not want any recognition. I do not want Serena to know. I do not want anyone to know. I give because it is right to give. Not because I want a plaque on a wall. But this year I decide to do something different. I have been watching the organization grow, and I know they are trying to expand into 2 new states and fund 15 new after-school learning centers. I have read every report, every financial document, every impact assessment they publish. Because that is what I do. I read documents. I understand numbers. And the numbers tell me that $1 million right now will create a ripple effect that serves tens of thousands of children over the next decade. So I make the decision. I wire $1 million to Illuminate Forward through my attorney 3 days before the gala. Anonymous. No name attached. Just a note that says for the children who deserve every chance in the world. I also decide to go to the gala. I decide this partly because Harrison wants me there and I love my son. And I decide it partly because something in me, some quiet, stubborn 83-year-old part of me wants to be in that room. I do not know exactly why yet. But I go with my instincts. They have never failed me. Now let me tell you about what I wear to this gala, because it matters to this story. I have a perfectly lovely formal gown in my closet. Deep navy blue, elegant, simple. But the week before the gala I come down with a slight cold and my navy gown is at the dry cleaner and I forget to pick it up in time. So on the night of the gala I wear a simple black dress. It is not flashy. It does not have sequins or beading or a designer label anyone would recognize. It is a clean, respectable black dress. I wear my pearl earrings that Gerald gives me on our 40th wedding anniversary. My good black shoes. My hair the way I always do it, white and soft and pinned gently. I put on my soft rose lipstick. I look at myself in the mirror and I think, Millicent Grace, you look like exactly what you are. A dignified 83-year-old woman who has lived a full and honorable life. And I walk out the door. My friend Ruth drives me to the Harrington Grand Hotel because I do not like driving at night anymore. Ruth is 78 years old and she is the kind of friend that God only gives you once in a lifetime. She has been my friend for 40 years and she knows everything about me, including about the $1 million. She is the only person on this earth who knows. She squeezes my hand when she drops me off and she says, "You call me when you are ready to leave, Millie. I will be right here." I squeeze her hand back. I walk inside. The Harrington Grand Hotel ballroom is genuinely breathtaking. I will give Serena that. She knows how to put together an event. There are tall white floral centerpieces on every table. The lighting is warm and golden. There is a string quartet playing in the corner. The tables are set with white linen and crystal and real silver flatware. Around 400 people fill the room, all of them in formal wear. All of them representing the kind of Charleston wealth and influence this city has quietly held for generations. I recognize several faces. A former mayor. 2 prominent attorneys. I feel comfortable here. I know how to be in a room like this. I find my table. It is table 14. I notice immediately that table 14 is not near the front. It is not near the stage. It is tucked somewhat toward the side, near the back, close to the kitchen entrance. I understand what this means. This is where Serena puts guests she considers unimportant. I sit down and I fold my hands in my lap and I breathe slowly and I decide to simply have a good evening regardless of where I am sitting. A young woman at my table introduces herself. Her name is Caroline and she works in development for a local hospital foundation. The man next to her is her husband, David, who is in commercial real estate. Across from me is an older gentleman named Walter, who tells me he used to teach high school history for 30 years. We have a genuinely lovely conversation before the dinner even starts. I like these people. I feel at ease. Then I see Harrison. He comes to my table as soon as he spots me and he hugs me and he looks genuinely happy to see me, and this makes my heart feel warm because underneath everything Harrison is still my boy. He is still the child who used to bring me dandelions from the backyard and call them flowers for the prettiest mom in the world. He looks handsome tonight in his tuxedo. He says, "Mom, you look great." I say, "Thank you, sweetheart." He leans in and says Serena is very busy tonight, but she will come say hello later. I nod. I say, "Of course." Nora finds me about 20 minutes later. And the moment I see her, my whole chest fills up with warmth. She is wearing a deep green gown and she looks absolutely radiant. She hugs me for a long time and she whispers in my ear, "I am so glad you came, Grandma Millie." I whisper back, "There is nowhere else I would rather be, my darling." We talk quietly, she tells me about her research project and I tell her about the new rose bush I plant in my garden, and we are just two people who love each other very much, talking the way people do when they feel completely safe. The formal program begins at 8 o'clock. Franklin Kerr, chairman of the Illuminate Forward Board, takes the stage first. He is a distinguished man in his 60s, silver-haired, commanding presence. He welcomes everyone and talks about the mission of Illuminate Forward, the number of children served, the learning centers opened, the scholarships granted over the past decade. He shows a short video with testimonials from children whose lives the organization has touched. I watch the video and I feel tears in my eyes, and I do not try to stop them because these are the right kind of tears, the kind that come when you know something good is happening in the world. Then Franklin Kerr says something that makes the entire room go quiet. He says, "I am honored to share that Illuminate Forward has received the largest single donation in our organization's history. 3 days ago, an anonymous donor contributes $1 million to our upcoming expansion initiative." He pauses. The room erupts in applause. I keep my hands folded in my lap. I do not clap. I keep my face completely still. Ruth Ann always says I have the best poker face she has ever seen. Tonight that is true. Franklin Kerr continues. He says this donation allows them to open 15 new after-school learning centers across 2 new states, and this changes everything for thousands of children who are waiting for this kind of opportunity. He says they do not know who this donor is. They wish to remain anonymous. But he wants them to know that their generosity is seen, and it is the reason that light reaches into places where there was only darkness before. The room applauds again. I breathe slowly and I look at my hands and I feel a quiet satisfaction that has nothing to do with being recognized and everything to do with knowing those 15 learning centers are going to be real. Now here is where the evening turns. Here is where everything that has been quietly building between Serena Blake and Millicent Grace for 22 years comes to a head in a single stunning moment that I do not see coming, even though some part of me perhaps should. The dinner is served and it is very good. Braised short rib with truffle mashed potatoes and roasted asparagus. I eat well. I drink 1 glass of red wine slowly. I enjoy my table mates. Caroline tells me about her daughter who just starts college, and I give her some advice about saving for graduate school, which she seems to genuinely appreciate. Walter talks about a history book he is reading about the Reconstruction era. David talks about a development project near the waterfront that he thinks will change the downtown landscape. It is a good dinner. It is a good table. Then comes the moment. Serena Blake moves through the room like she owns it, which tonight she essentially does. She is in a stunning emerald gown, her dark hair pinned perfectly, her makeup immaculate. She has the practiced grace of someone who has attended and hosted 1,000 events exactly like this one. She makes her way from table to table, greeting guests, shaking hands, accepting compliments about the event with the right amount of modest gratitude. She is very good at this. I watch her work the room and I think whatever else Serena is, she is genuinely skilled at this. She reaches table 14. She greets Caroline warmly. She shakes David's hand. She says something gracious to Walter about his years in education. And then she turns to me. And her expression changes. It is subtle. Most people in this room would not notice it. But I notice it because I have been watching Serena Blake's face for 22 years. Her smile stays on, but something behind her eyes shifts, and not in a warm direction. She looks at my dress. She takes in my simple black dress and my pearl earrings and my white hair, and the look on her face is the look of someone who has spotted something that does not belong in the room. She says, "Millicent." In that tone. You know the tone. The one that is technically polite but is actually a door closing in your face. She says, "I did not realize you were coming tonight. The dress code was black tie. I did not know if you would have something appropriate." Caroline goes very still next to me. David looks down at his plate. Walter looks at Serena with an expression he quickly makes neutral. I say, "Good evening, Serena. You have put together a beautiful event. I mean this." I keep my voice pleasant and even, because I am 83 years old and I have been in more difficult rooms than this one. Serena nods, but she is not finished. I can feel it. She has been holding something for a long time, and the champagne and the success of the evening, and my son being on the other side of the room, all of it gives her a kind of dangerous confidence. She looks at me and she says, "We appreciate you making the trip, Millicent. I know things are a little tight for you these days." She pauses. She smiles. And then she says it. She says, if you ever need help, there are programs, you know. We work with several. For seniors on fixed incomes. She tilts her head slightly, almost like she is being kind. You do not have to struggle in silence, she says. You did not have to come all the way out here tonight, and she glances at my dress again, and she says quietly but clearly enough for the whole table to hear, well, we do try to make everyone feel welcome regardless of their circumstances. There it is. She calls me a beggar without using the word. She says it in the smoothest, most charitable sounding way possible, but every single person at that table hears exactly what she means. She is saying I am poor. She is saying I cannot afford a proper gown. She is saying I show up to her fancy gala looking like a charity case and should be grateful she lets me in. All of this with a smile on her face and champagne in her hand in a room where she has just accepted applause for her generosity. I look at her. I do not look away. I do not flinch. I hold her gaze with the steadiness of a woman who has lived 83 years and buried a husband and built a career and raised children and written a check for $1 million 3 days ago, and does not need anything from anyone in this room tonight. I hold her gaze and I let the silence sit between us for just a moment. Just long enough. And then I say, how kind of you, Serena. I say it very quietly. I say it very clearly. And I say nothing else. She moves on. She slides away with her emerald gown and her champagne, and the evening continues. Caroline reaches over and touches my hand gently under the table. She does not say anything. She does not need to. Walter looks at me with the kind of respect one person gives another when they have watched them handle something difficult with exceptional grace. I breathe. I take a small sip of wine. I am fine. I am more than fine. About 45 minutes later, Franklin Kerr returns to the stage to recognize and thank the largest donors of the year. He reads through a list of names and amounts, and people stand briefly and accept applause, and it is all very dignified and proper. And then he gets to the end of the list and he pauses and he says, and of course our deepest gratitude goes to our anonymous $1 million donor. Without this person, none of what we have planned for next year would be possible. We do not know who you are. But we hope you know that you have changed everything. I do not stand up. I do not raise my hand. I do not do anything. I keep my hands folded in my lap and I look at the stage and I breathe slowly and I feel that quiet satisfaction again, the one that has nothing to do with being seen. But Nora knows. Nora is the only other person in this room who knows because she is my granddaughter, and 3 weeks ago, I tell her quietly what I am planning to do and I swear her to secrecy, and she holds my face in her hands and she says, Grandma Millie, you are the most extraordinary person I have ever known. And Nora, sitting at a table closer to the front with the younger guests, Nora turns around in her chair at this moment and she finds my face across the room and she looks at me with an expression that I feel in my bones. Her eyes are full. She presses her hand to her heart. Press mine back. That is all. That is everything. After the program ends, Harrison finds me again. He pulls up a chair and says, Mom, did Serena come by your table? I say yes. He says, I hope she made you feel welcome. I look at my son for a moment. I think about how I could tell him everything right now. I think about the expressions on Caroline's face and Walter's face when Serena makes her comment. But I look at my son, this 54-year-old man who still has something of the dandelion boy in him, and I decide tonight is not the night for that conversation. I simply say, she ran a beautiful event, Harrison. You should be proud of what she has built. And I mean every word of it. He smiles. He takes my hand. He says, I am really glad you came, Mom. I squeeze his hand. I say I would not have missed it for the world. Then something unexpected happens. Franklin Kerr approaches my table. He is making the rounds thanking major donors personally, and he stops at table 14. He shakes Walter's hand, thanks Caroline and David, and then he looks at me and something in his expression shifts. He says, and you are Millicent Grace, is that right? I say yes. He says, I thought so. Your attorney sends over your donor profile along with the wire transfer. He looks at me with a warm expression and he says, on behalf of every child whose life you are changing, thank you. He says it quietly just for our table. He is gracious because I request anonymity and he respects that completely. He shakes my hand with both of his and moves on. Walter looks at me. Caroline looks at me. David looks at me. Nobody says anything for a moment. And then Walter says very softly, well, I look at him and I smile. I say, it is what you do with what you have that matters, Walter. He nods slowly. He says, I believe you are right. What happens next is not something I engineer. It is something that happens the way truth has a way of happening at the exact right moment, quietly and inevitably, like water finding the crack in a wall. Serena is passing by table 14 again when she sees Franklin Kerr walk away from my table. She stops. She looks at Franklin. She looks at me. Something in her face changes. She comes closer. She says, Franklin was just at your table? Her voice has a different quality now. Something uncertain is forming underneath the champagne confidence. I say, yes, he was very kind to stop by. She says, what did he say? I say, he said thank you. She says, thank you for what? I say, for the donation, Serena. The color drains from her face so completely and so quickly that I am genuinely concerned for a moment that she might need to sit down. She stares at me. I watch her put it together. I watch the pieces land one by one. The anonymous donor. $1 million. Franklin thanking me personally. She stares at me and she says, it was you? She says it in a whisper. Just those 3 words. It was you? And I say yes. I say it the same way I say everything else tonight. Quietly. Clearly. Without drama. She stands there in her emerald gown in the middle of the ballroom. And she looks like the world has just rearranged itself around her without asking permission. Which, in a way, it has. I let the silence sit between us again. I am good at silence. I have spent 83 years getting good at silence. And then I say, your organization does genuinely important work, Serena. Those children deserve every chance. I am glad I could help. And then I turn back to my dessert, a very good chocolate mousse, and I take a bite and it is excellent. Serena does not speak for what feels like a very long time but is probably only about 15 seconds. Then she says, Millicent, She stops. She starts again. She says, earlier tonight I said something. She stops again. I look up at her. I wait. She says, I did not mean to imply. Her voice is not smooth anymore. All the practice polish has fallen away and underneath it is just a woman realizing what she has done, and who she has done it to. She says, I am sorry. Just those 2 words. I am sorry. And in 22 years she has never said those words to me. Not once. For anything. I look at her for a long moment. I think about 22 years of being made to feel small. I think about every thin smile and every carefully worded slight. I think about what she says to me tonight about fixed incomes and senior programs and being welcome regardless of my circumstances. And then I think about Nora pressing her hand to her heart across a room full of people. I think about Harrison squeezing my hand. I think about those 15 learning centers and all those children who are going to have something they need because someone who wanted nothing in return decided to give. I say, Serena, I accept your apology. I say it and I mean it. Not because what she does tonight is small or excusable or not painful. It is painful. It hurts the way it always hurts when someone looks at you and decides you are less than you are. But I am 83 years old. And I have learned that carrying the weight of other people's smallness only damages the person carrying it. I put that weight down a long time ago. I am not picking it up tonight. So I say I accept your apology. And I do. Serena stands there for another moment. Her eyes are bright in a way that tells me she is working very hard not to cry in the middle of her own gala. She says, I did not know. I say, I know you did not. She says, I never imagined you. I say, most people do not. She nods. She seems like she wants to say more, but she does not know what to say. I say, your work matters, Serena. Keep doing it. Keep doing it well. And I look back at my chocolate mousse. She walks away. I hear her heels moving back across the ballroom. I exhale slowly. Walter catches my eye and gives me the smallest nod. Caroline tops up my water glass without being asked. David looks at his plate with the expression of a man who has just witnessed something he will be thinking about for a long time. Ruth picks me up at 10:15. I walk out into the cool Charleston night and see her car idling at the curb, and I feel the relief of coming back to yourself after being somewhere difficult. I get in and Ruth looks at me and says, well? And I tell her everything. Every word. Every moment. By the time I finish, we are parked in front of my house and Ruth is shaking her head slowly and she says, Millicent Grace, you are something else. I say, I am just an 83-year-old woman who had a good evening. She laughs and it is the best sound in the world. I go inside. I turn on my porch light and make myself a cup of chamomile tea. I stand at my kitchen window and look out at the oak trees in the dark yard, and I think about Gerald, and I think about those 15 learning centers and the children who are going to walk into those centers someday and sit down and learn and have a chance they might not have had otherwise. I think about Serena's face when she realizes. I think about the way I say I accept your apology and mean it. I think about Nora pressing her hand to her heart. I carry my tea out to the porch and listen to Gerald's wind chime. The night air is soft and warm the way Charleston nights are in early fall. I think about what it means to live a life invisible to people who have not bothered to look. I think about how you can spend decades doing things that matter without fanfare and have people see only the surface and decide they have seen everything. That is their limitation and not yours. And I think about how the truth always surfaces. Not always on your timeline. Not always in the way you expect. But it surfaces. I take a long sip of my tea. I listen to the wind chime. I think, Gerald, you would have laughed about tonight. You always loved a good ending. He was that kind of man, my Gerald. He loved a good ending. Few days pass. Serena calls me. This is something that has not happened in years. When her name appears on my phone, I look at it for a moment before answering. She asks if we can have lunch. Just the two of us. I say yes. We meet at a restaurant downtown, the kind that has good coffee and quiet tables where conversations stay private. Serena is there when I arrive. She stands when she sees me come in. She has never done that before. She looks different from the gala. The armor is not fully down, but there are gaps in it. Visible ones. We order our food. We talk. And I mean really talk in a way we have never talked in 22 years. Serena tells me about her own mother. A cold and critical woman who makes her feel never good enough throughout her entire childhood. She tells me about the pressure she puts on herself with Illuminate Forward because proving that she is not her mother has become something she cannot let go of. She tells me that when she sees me at the gala in my simple black dress she panics, afraid people will assume she is not generous even within her own family. She says it is not an excuse. She looks at me and she says, I have been trying to control everything for so long that I stopped seeing people. She says, I stopped seeing you. I listen to all of this without interrupting. I drink my coffee and I listen the way you learn to listen when you spend 41 years being trusted with other people's most important numbers. When she finishes, I say, Serena, I want to tell you something. I say I have never disliked you. I know that might surprise you. But I have always seen a woman working very hard to do something real in the world. And I have respected that even when things between us have not been easy. I say what you are building is worth building. I want to see it succeed. But I also need you to see me, Serena. Not as an inconvenience. Not as a problem to manage. As Harrison's mother. As Nora's grandmother. As someone who has been in your family for 22 years. She nods. Her eyes are bright again. She says, I know. I am learning that. I say, good. That is enough. Learning is enough. We finish our lunch. It is not a perfect afternoon. 22 years of patterns do not dissolve over one lunch no matter how honest it is. But something shifts. Something real and actual shifts between us in that restaurant and I feel it. I think she feels it too. When we walk out she turns to me on the sidewalk and she says, would it be all right if I called you? Not about Harrison or Nora, just to talk sometimes. I look at her. I say I would like that. And I mean it. Harrison calls me that evening. He sounds lighter than he has sounded in years. He says, Mom, Serena told me everything. He is quiet for a moment and then he says, I am sorry I did not see what was happening. I say, Harrison, you are a good man. You love your wife and your daughter and you love me and that is the truth. We just need to keep seeing each other. He says, yes, we do. I say, come visit me soon. Bring Nora if she can get away. He says, I will. Promise. I believe him. Nora calls me the next morning. She says, Grandma Millie, you are a legend. I laugh. I say, I am just an old woman who wrote a check. She says, you are the most powerful person I have ever met, and you wear it so quietly that most people walk right past it. I say, that is by design, my darling. She says, I want to be like you when I grow up. I say, you are already better than me. She laughs and it sounds like bells and I sit on my porch holding the phone thinking that life, even at 83, even with its sorrows and its moments of being called a beggar in a room full of chandeliers, life is an extraordinary thing when you are paying attention. The 15 learning centers are announced publicly 2 weeks after the gala. I read about it in the local news over my morning coffee. Illuminate Forward is expanding into Georgia and Virginia. hiring local teachers and counselors. The first center opens in 6 months and 300 children are already registered. I sit with my coffee on my porch and I read this and I feel something in my chest that I do not have an exact word for. It is not pride exactly. It is more like rightness. The feeling of something being exactly as it should be. Gerald's wind chime moves in the morning breeze. I look up at the oak trees. I drink my coffee. Think this is what a life looks like. Not the glamour of it. Not the recognition. Not the gala and the chandeliers and the applause. This. A porch in Charleston in the morning light. Wind chimes that have been singing for 31 years. Children in a new building somewhere learning something they need to know. A granddaughter who calls me a legend. A son who is coming to visit. A daughter-in-law who is learning to look. This is what a life looks like when you have built it with your hands and your mind and your quiet, stubborn heart, and you have not let anyone make you feel smaller than you are. This is 83 years old and it is not nothing. It is everything. I am Millicent Grace. I live in a cream-colored house with a wide porch in Charleston, South Carolina. I worked for 41 years and I built something and I gave $1 million away without putting my name on it, and I sat in my simple black dress at a table near the kitchen and I looked a woman in the eyes when she tried to make me feel small and I did not flinch. And then I forgave her over lunch on a Thursday because forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is the most powerful thing a person can do with their pain. I know this. I have always known this. And now I am sitting on my porch telling you this story because I need you to know something. I need you to know that the quietest person in the room is sometimes the one who has done the most. I need you to know that what you wear and where you sit says absolutely nothing about who you are and what you carry inside you. I need you to know that the most important things you do in your life might be things that no one ever knows you did, and that is not a tragedy. That is a choice. And it is a beautiful one. I need you to know that it is never too late to be seen, even if being seen takes a long time. I need you to know that at 83 years old I am not tired. I am not finished. I am sitting on my porch in the morning light with my coffee and my wind chimes, and I am more myself than I have ever been. And that is something no one can take away from you if you hold it carefully enough. That is my story. That is what happens. And I am glad I told it to you today. Every single city. I want to know where in this big beautiful world you are sitting right now while you listen to an 83-year-old woman from Charleston tell you the truth about her life. Drop your city in the comments right now. I read every single one. I see you. And if you love your grandma, if you have a grandmother or you had one and she is the reason you know what real love looks like, please give this video a like. Right now. Just press it. For her. For every quiet, strong woman who has ever been underestimated and kept going anyway. Press that like button for every grandmother who gives and never asks for anything in return. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this one. Stories about real life and real people and what it means to live with dignity and grace and a little bit of beautiful stubbornness. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss a story. We have so many more stories to tell, and I want you here for all of them. And share this video with your friends. Share it with someone who needs to hear today that quiet strength is still strength. That invisible giving is still giving. That an 83-year-old woman in a simple black dress with pearl earrings is exactly as powerful as she decides to be. Share it right now. Someone out there needs this story today. You know exactly who that person is. Send it to them right now and let them know you are thinking of them. This is Millicent Grace. Signing off from my porch in Charleston, South Carolina, with my coffee and my wind chimes and my whole entire heart. God bless you all. Take care of each other. And never, ever let anyone make you feel like you do not belong in the room.